Hey, what's going on, everybody? Andrew here, back for our build review show. It is Friday, April 25th of 2025. And on this show, I bring users builds up live on screen here, giving them personalized feedback and advice about things I think that they can do differently in their builds to help improve their results, help improve their post-contest sim ROIs, and help them to ultimately build and submit stronger lineups into their contests. We do this show once a week on Fridays at 5 p.m. Eastern. If you ever want to get signed up for a show, two ways to do so. Number one, send us an email, support@sabersim.com. Number two, post in the office hours channel in Discord. And just let me know the following information. Let me know what date, what sport, what site and slate you want reviewed, and I will add you to the list for the next show. So an example of that would be like, hey, Andrew, can you review my MLB main slate lineups on DraftKings from April 22nd? And then if you give me that info, should give me everything I need. If I need anything else, I will follow up with you. But that is the easiest way to get signed up for the show. So with that said, we do have two people signed up today. And the first person is going to be over on FanDuel. We don't have contest flashback for FanDuel. Unfortunately, FanDuel does not allow us to download their contest CSVs the same way DraftKings does. So we don't have the same capabilities to provide the same functionality there, unfortunately. But we can still review the builds and just decisions that are going on within the builds. So that's always helpful. So we're going to be reviewing the FanDuel NBA main slate from 2 days ago on Wednesday. All right, so let's get this up on the screen and jump right in. So a couple things here, right? First thing I noticed is that this user doesn't have a contest CSV uploaded. Okay, so I don't really know what contests they're playing, what their contest selection looks like, right? Contest selection, super important. There's a saying I heard a long time ago that I always remember, and it says, you can be the 10th best poker player in the world, but if you're at the table with the other 9, you are now the worst player in the game. So that just goes to show how important contest selection is. You always want to find contests where there are players that are worse than you, where the best players both FanDuel and DraftKings have specific contests where the best players in the lobbies simply can't even see them, so they can't even enter them, right? For FanDuel, I believe the guidelines are you need to have less than $50,000 in net earnings to see contests below $3. So these are your 5-cent 150 maxes, your 25-cent 150 maxes, anything that's $1, $2, 222, right? They run all these different contests. All of those contests, the best players in the lobbies don't have access to those. So those are going to be some of the best contests to start with. Okay. And then I think on DraftKings, it is if you have less than $1 million in gross earnings, you get to see contests under $3. So that's the biggest thing here that I would, just remember is that contest selection, just start entering contests that way, from low to high, right? And that would just look like fee lowest. And then, you start with 5-cent 150 max, 25-cent, 25-cent, just start knocking all these out. And you're going to get so many entries, which is, the great thing, right? It'll help smooth out your variance over time. So can't see what contest they entered, but we do still see their build. Another thing here, right? This kind of gives us an idea into what they're playing. They have one lineup in favorites. So let's go to our build that they used. So I'm not 100% sure here, right? I don't know if they played one lineup. I don't know if they played 20 lineups. But let's just guess that they played one lineup, right? All right. So you got to go over to the contest tab and you got to look at the payout structures for these contests, right? Maybe this user just played one lineup in the flagship contest. Okay. So the cashing rate in this contest is about 23%. Okay. Now, what this means is that this user can expect to simply cash in this contest about 1 in 4 times. So if you're on, a 5-day trial, you're trying out SaberSim for the first time, You're playing one lineup a night. You know, the chances are you're going to lose 3 out of 4 nights and you're going to cash one night, right? And you're going to think and you're going to go like, wow, this still sucks. Like I could build better lineups, on my own. But you're not taking into account, the likelihood and really like understanding the payout structure, right? Because, okay, sure, you cash, 1 in 4 times, but you don't get 4-1 on your money when you do cash. This $5 entry, maybe it's worth 2x. Maybe, you're not even always going to see a 2x min cash, especially on DraftKings, you're going to see like a 1.5x min cash, 1.8x min cash, right? So a event occurs that happens 1 in 4 times, yet you get paid maybe 2-1 on your money. That would be like going to the casino, playing roulette, and you instead of getting 37-1, 38-1, depending on how many zeros are on the table, and you bet on one number, it hits, and they're like, all right, we're gonna be 17-1 here, and you're gonna be like, whoa, like what the heck, that's not very good. And it's like it's true, but where the money really is in DFS is in building high upside lineups, because in the first percent, you can see that so much of the prize pool is going to the first place prize, right? 20%, 33%, right? We see a bunch of other double digit numbers. I think FanDuel might be like a little bit flatter than DraftKings payout structures, but we still see like high percent to first here, right? You need these wins in order to survive, the DFS ecosystem, and you can't rely on min caching. If you rely on min caching, that's a losing man's game, unfortunately, right? So, in a back testing project that we did, back in a couple baseball seasons ago, what we learned was that even a winning player, somebody who has a 20% expected ROI across the season, was only profiting 6 to 8 days in a calendar month, which means that they're losing, 22 to 24 days out of the month, right? So it doesn't feel good, but that's just kind of the way DFS goes. You have like this big spike in your graph from winning, a lot of losing until your next big spike, right? So that is just a result of the payout structures being, very, very top heavy. It's not similar to other forms of gambling like sports betting or like poker, where it's like kind of like a slow and steady kind of climb up. Maybe like cash games would be like another example of that. So I say all this to say, one of the best things that you can do in DFS is to get more lineups in play, get more shots on goal. Now, I'm not saying go and spend more money, right? I'm not saying, okay, fine, I'm going to take my $5 and my one entry in the $5 and I'm going to, play 20 lineups and risk $100. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is take your $5, go to the low stakes, and for $5, you can get 100 entries in the 5-cent piggy bank, right? And now, you're going to have a lot more lineups that cash. You're going to help smooth out your variance by playing more lineups. And then you scale appropriately, right? As you start to build a winning process, as you start to have success, you enter the 25-cent, you enter the $1 single entry, the $1 3 max, all these other contests, and you just work your way up the lobby, right? Till, you're playing all the big stuff too, which is cool. But this is like the best thing to do if you're new to DFS, if you're, only playing one entry, is to, take a different approach with your lineups and contest selection mostly, right? So that's the biggest thing that could have like a massive impact in your results. As far as what you're doing in the build, let's see what's going on here. So we got this build one. One thing I noticed right out of the gate, and I don't know, if this is true or not. We don't see a swap build. Now, the first 2 games start really, really close to each other, and basketball games typically start like 10 minutes after the official start time. So not that much time is like elapsed between the Boston game and the Cleveland game, but there is kind of a big break until the Golden State Houston game. Now, I don't know if there was any swap worthy news. That's like the biggest thing to be aware of, but a good place to get that information in case you're not paying attention to that already would be in the NBA lineup alert channel in Discord, right? When a sim runs and you see a sim completed and you see the players listed underneath the completed sim with projection adjustments, you should look at these and be like, hey, do I feel like these projection adjustments are worthy of changing, right? And, it's going to depend. I think there was one the other day where Miami decided to start Davion Mitchell instead of Alec Burks, which is this sim up here. I would consider this swap worthy news, right? We had a situation where Burks was projected to start and Mitchell ended up starting instead. Burks' projection goes down about 4 points. Mitchell's projection comes up about 4 points. And this is super impactful, right? To projections, to value. If this was like the last game on the slate, I would make sure to swap for this, right? Or I think this is actually this day. So as a matter of fact, this is a great example because this is the same slate this user played. This update happened 6 minutes after the first game started. I definitely would have swapped in this situation just because this is like very highly impactful. So the fact that we don't see a swap build here indicates to me that the user didn't late swap. So what I would do is I would keep Discord open in, its separate tab in your browser, or, maybe you have like the downloaded Discord app or whatever. And anytime you see this refresh icon turn green, which indicates to you that there are new projections, hop over to the NBA lineup alert channel, see what's going on over there, and then kind of figure out, hey, is this swap worthy news? Because I actually really would have liked to see a late swap occur here for those updated projections. So that's a big thing there. Late swapping, very, very key. Aside from that, what else do we see here? Let me just reset these. We don't see any min or max exposures in all. Nothing in the individual players. Limiting stacks very, very heavily. I don't love this idea. The other thing I don't really love is like, okay, if you're okay with a 2-2-2, why aren't you really okay with like a 2-2-2-2? Like I would actually really like to hear somebody like explain that to me. What like the logic is behind that, or like if you're okay with a 3-2, why not like a 3-2-2? Something like that. So I would recommend leaving all of the stacks available. Even if the stacks are coming up at like a very low percentage of the time in like your pool exposure, you got to think about it like this. If a stack is coming up, 1 out of 100 times, right? And your contest has 10,000 entries in it, right? I mean, in order to win a 10,000 entry contest, you need to have a, lineup have a 0.01% outcome, right? Because 10,000, let's see, 10,000 divided by 1. No, I'm sorry. Let's go 10,000 times 0.1. So that's 10%. Okay. 10,000 times 0.01. So this is the top 1% is 100. So the top 1% of lineups are 100. And then 10,000 times 0.001 should be 10. And then 10,000 times 0.0001, right? So this is in order to win the contest, right? This is 2 decimal places over. So you need a 99.99% occurrence, right? So like the odds of you winning a 10,000 person contest, as like an example, or like you need, something that occurs 0.01% of the time. Well, even if a stack type is coming up 1% of the time, you should kind of still consider that stack like viable. Not to say like you should like go and play like 100% of like stacks that are coming up like 1% of the time, but the odds of like that stack being good are like obviously like higher than the odds of like you winning, you having one lineup come in first place. So I just kind of say that to say, like, I think people undervalue what the sim is doing here, right? It's bringing stacks up at the rate that they are optimal in the sim. So if you see a stack coming up 2% of the time, 3% of the time, the builder is saying like, hey, yeah, the stack isn't like the most common winner. It doesn't always win, but there are a number of times where it is actually a viable stack. And, it's going to kind of try and play those stacks closer to like the rate that like they're optimal. And me personally, I kind of like to let those fall into my sets. We see this like with baseball, like, okay, 17 out of my 20 lineups are like a 4 stack or like a 5 stack, but 3 out of 20 are like a 3 stack. It's like, well, 3 stacks, they're coming up, right? Not to say like I need to exclude them. Most of my lineup sets are bigger stacks, which are more conventional, but it's, the builder's giving me them at kind of the rate that they're good. So all to say that I would leave more stack types checked here. Personally, I would leave them all. If you want to say like, hey, I don't want to use a 4 stack or more, okay, fine. Then, get rid of the 4 stacks, right? Come in here and just simply get rid of like the 4s. But all of like the 3s with additional combos and things like that, I think that these are all super viable. So I would leave all of them selected. All right. Aside from that, anything in games? No, nothing in team stacks. Looks like default salary. Using direct fill, using saber score, using 3 uniques. That seems good. Looks like they built 20 lineups here. As far as aggregate metrics go, especially with starter, if you're using saber score, I really recommend using an average projection one. It's okay to leave these if you like these. But what I've seen in flashback is that, not sacrificing too much projection matters. And, if you want to see them all, you can just scroll this out and then you have access to that, right? So you can see what the differences are in projection from 1 min unique to 3. And it looks like, when you do that, you only drop like 0.3 average projection. So that seems like a fine number, right? Let's see. Also staying very, very high in the pool, only going down the lineup 22. So a lot of the decisions here look good. I think the biggest things for me are going to be the contest selection, the stack exposures. And I think if you just start there, make some small adjustments in the beginning, and then slowly refine your process, that's going to be the right track to go down here. So hopefully those things are helpful. Let me know if there's any follow-up, but these are the things that I would be adjusting going forward. All right, good stuff there. And one more review to do today. It's kind of a long one. That was cool. All right. For this next one, we're going to be looking at the same day, Wednesday, 4/23, but we're going to be jumping over to DK and we're going to be looking at the MLB early slate. So let's go to MLB. Looks like it was a 4-game slate. And let's see what happened here. So this one's going to be for Tim and Stacy. And we're going to get them up on the screen in a second. Interesting. Not seeing it. So that's always a little weird when I don't see their lineups. Joe said, bro, why doesn't take 5 minutes to load 50 lineups? I'm not sure if you're trying to say like why does it take or why doesn't it take. Couple of things that could affect this, right? If like you're building on mobile versus like on a desktop, processing power comes into play here, right? Like the device you're using. Other things that can matter is like if you made like a ton of adjustments, right, when you're building your lineups, that could cause it to go a little bit slower. If you're using sim mode, it could go faster. If you're using optimizer mode, it could take longer. But if you're having problems with the app and you're like, you know what, this feels really weird, in the top right corner, there's a menu, and you click the menu, you can go to report a problem, and then you can send our team a report. So that'll just say like, it'll be like a little dialogue box, and you can be like, hey, loading times feel like they're taking a little bit longer than usual. Can you guys look into this, right? And then we can pull it up on our end, kind of see what's going on, see if there's any like bugs or recommendations for performance or things like that we kind of feel that can help you. So like those are the biggest things that I'd keep in mind. Joe said, I'm on mobile. We'll try iPad. Yeah, give it a shot. But if you still experience it, do that report a problem. That will help us out. We definitely want the experience to be better than waiting 5 minutes to load 50 lineups. So we're happy to work through that problem with you and help you figure it out. Okay, so I'm having a little bit of trouble pulling up this second person for this review. We're going to try one more time. See if we get lucky here. If not, I'm going to have to follow up with them and then maybe do a review offline and send it to them. But problem is I'm not seeing it. So it looks like that is, oh no, wait, this is for today. Okay. One more time. Let's go back here. Early. In the meantime, while I work on this, question from Joe: from playing cash games for MLB, what would you recommend the settings be? Newbie apologized. Yeah, no, for sure. No worries. So what I would do is in the build lineups button, there's a gear icon. I would switch the gear from sim mode to optimizer mode. Now, the reason we suggest that is when you're playing double ups, cash games, 50-50s, any kind of slate along those guidelines, we do recommend using optimizer mode, which builds the highest projected lineups first, followed by the second highest projected, the third highest projected. It is solving the mathematical optimal. Our sim mode works a little bit different. And to be honest, our sim mode is optimized for playing GPPs and tournaments, while the optimizer mode is better for cash games. So for cash games, I would highly recommend sticking with optimizer mode and rolling with the top lineup that you get sorted by projected score. So that would be my advice on that front. All right. Trying one more time here. So still not seeing it. I'll have to follow up with this user offline and figure out what happened. My apologies there. But looks like that is it for the build review show today. Appreciate you guys tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow, 12:30 p.m. Eastern for office hours. Until then, everybody, take care. Good luck. Thanks. Bye.